In the heart of New Orleans, where jazz flowed as freely as the Mississippi River, there was a small, dimly lit club tucked away on a quiet street. The walls were adorned with faded posters of legendary musicians, and the air carried the faint scent of aged wood and spilled whiskey. It wasn't glamorous, but it had character, a place where music lovers gathered to escape the noise of the outside world and lose themselves in melodies. Among these regulars was Maya Rivers, a young woman whose presence commanded attention not because she sought it, but because her music spoke louder than words. Maya was blind, yet she navigated the world with an ease that seemed almost supernatural. Her dark sunglasses shielded her unseeing eyes, but her smile radiated warmth and confidence. She had been born without sight, but from the moment her fingers first touched a piano keyboard at the age of 5, she discovered a new way of seeing: the language of music. For Maya, every note was a color, every chord a texture, and every melody a story waiting to be told. Despite the challenges life threw her way, she never let her disability define her. Instead, she used it as fuel for her art, pouring her soul into every performance. Every Friday night, Maya would take her place at the old upright piano in the corner of the club. The stool creaked slightly when she sat down, and the keys were worn smooth from years of use, but none of that mattered once she began to play. Her hands moved across the keyboard with grace and precision, coaxing sounds that seemed impossible to come from such a modest instrument. Whether it was a lively ragtime tune or a hauntingly beautiful ballad, Maya's playing transported listeners to another world. Some closed their eyes to savor the experience. Others leaned forward, unable to tear their gaze away from the woman who played with such passion, despite being unable to see. But Maya's journey hadn't been easy. Growing up in a community that often underestimated her abilities, she faced skepticism at every turn. Teachers questioned whether she could keep up in school, peers teased her for being different, and even some family members doubted if pursuing music was practical. Yet through it all, Maya remained steadfast. Her grandmother, a former church choir singer, had taught her to believe in herself. "God gave you this gift for a reason," she would say. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Those words stayed with Maya, guiding her through moments of doubt and discouragement. On this particular evening, the club buzzed with its usual energy. Patrons chatted animatedly over drinks, while waiters weaved between tables carrying trays laden with food and cocktails. Maya sat quietly at the piano, tuning out the chatter as she prepared for her set. She didn't need sheet music. Every piece she played was etched into her memory, a testament to hours of practice and dedication. As she began her first song, the room gradually grew quieter, the conversations fading into murmurs until only the music remained. Among the crowd that night was someone unexpected: Victor Langston, a celebrated pianist known worldwide for his virtuosity and flair. Victor was a man who thrived on perfection, both in his craft and in his appearance. Dressed impeccably in a tailored suit, he exuded an air of superiority that made people either admire him or resent him. His reputation preceded him. He was brilliant, yes, but also arrogant, often dismissing other musicians as amateurs unworthy of sharing his spotlight. That night, however, curiosity had led him to the little club. He'd heard whispers about a blind woman who played the piano like no one else. And though he scoffed at the idea, something about the story intrigued him enough to investigate for himself. Victor slipped into the back of the room just as Maya launched into a stirring rendition of Claire de Lune. At first he watched with detached interest, his arms crossed as he scrutinized her technique. But as the piece unfolded, he found himself leaning forward slightly, his brow furrowing. There was something about her playing that unsettled him, not just the technical skill, which was undeniable, but the emotion behind it. Each note seemed to carry a weight, a depth that went beyond mere notes on a page. By the time she finished, the room erupted into applause, but Victor remained silent, his mind racing. When the set ended, Maya stood to polite cheers and began packing up her things. That's when Victor approached her, his demeanor dripping with condescension. "So you're the famous blind pianist I've heard so much about," he said, his tone laced with mockery. Maya turned toward the sound of his voice, her expression unreadable. "I don't know about famous," she replied calmly, "but I do love what I do." Victor smirked, clearly unimpressed. "Love isn't enough," he retorted. "Music requires precision, discipline, things I doubt you can achieve without sight." His words hung heavy in the air, drawing curious glances from nearby patrons. Maya, however, didn't flinch. She simply smiled, her composure unshaken. "Maybe you're right," she said softly, "but maybe you're wrong." "Care to find out?" The challenge was issued almost casually, yet its implications rippled through the room. A hush fell over the crowd as they realized what was happening. Here was Victor Langston, a giant in the classical music world, going head-to-head with Maya Rivers, a relatively unknown artist with everything stacked against her. To some, it felt like David versus Goliath. To others, it was sheer entertainment. But for Maya, it was more than a competition. It was an opportunity to show the world that greatness knows no boundaries. As the tension mounted, Maya took a deep breath, letting the moment wash over her. She wasn't intimidated by Victor's fame or his biting remarks. In fact, she welcomed the chance to prove herself, not for his approval, but for the sake of everyone who had ever been told they weren't good enough. Little did Victor know, he was about to learn a lesson he wouldn't soon forget. The atmosphere in the club shifted dramatically as Victor's challenge echoed through the room. What had started as an ordinary Friday night quickly transformed into something far more intense. Word spread like wildfire among the patrons. Victor Langston, the world-famous pianist, was going to face off against Maya Rivers, the blind woman whose music had already captivated so many hearts. The buzz of excitement was palpable, and within minutes the small space became packed with eager onlookers. People craned their necks to get a better view, while others scrambled to find standing room near the piano. Even the waitstaff paused, mid-step, trays forgotten in their hands as anticipation crackled in the air. Maya stood calmly by the piano, her expression serene despite the sudden attention. She didn't seem fazed by the spectacle unfolding around her. For her, this wasn't about proving herself to Victor or anyone else. It was about sharing her love for music, no matter the circumstances. Still, she couldn't ignore the weight of what was happening. This wasn't just any challenge. It was a moment that could change how people saw her and others like her. She knew all too well the doubts people harbored, about blindness, about talent, about whether someone like her truly belonged in the spotlight. And while Maya wasn't driven by pride, she understood the importance of moments like these. They weren't just for her. They were for everyone who had ever been underestimated. Victor, on the other hand, thrived in the limelight. He adjusted his cufflinks casually, exuding confidence as he addressed the growing crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, his voice smooth and commanding, "tonight we have the rare opportunity to witness something extraordinary, a true test of skill." His words dripped with arrogance, though they elicited murmurs of agreement from some in the audience. Turning to Maya, he added, "Let's see if your fingers are as nimble as your reputation suggests." The rules of the impromptu duel were simple. Each pianist would choose a piece to perform, one after the other. The pieces could be anything they wished, but there was an unspoken understanding that the stakes were high. Victor immediately seized control of the situation, declaring that he would go second. It was clear he wanted to follow Maya's performance, to overshadow it, perhaps. Without hesitation, he instructed her to play first, his tone smug and dismissive. Maya nodded graciously, unfazed by his posturing. She took her place at the piano bench, her hands hovering over the keys for a brief moment before settling lightly upon them. There was a collective intake of breath as the room fell silent, every eye fixed on her. For a fleeting second, even Victor leaned forward slightly, curiosity getting the better of him. Then with a gentle touch, Maya began to play. She chose Chopin's Nocturne Op. 9, number 2, a piece known for its delicate beauty and intricate phrasing. It was a bold choice, especially given the complexity of the composition, but Maya attacked it with effortless grace. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, weaving together cascading arpeggios and rich harmonies that seemed to shimmer in the air. Despite her lack of sight, she navigated the piece with impeccable precision, never missing a note. But what truly set her apart was the emotion she infused into the music. Every phrase felt alive, brimming with longing and tenderness. It was as though she wasn't simply playing the notes. She was telling a story, one that resonated deeply with everyone listening. As the final chord faded into silence, the room remained utterly still for a heartbeat. Then applause erupted, thunderous and heartfelt. People clapped not just because the performance was technically flawless, but because it moved them. Strangers exchanged glances, their faces reflecting awe and admiration. Some wiped away tears, overwhelmed by the sheer beauty of what they had just witnessed. Even Victor, who had intended to remain aloof, found himself momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected this, not from someone who couldn't see the sheet music, let alone the keys beneath her fingers. When the applause finally subsided, it was Victor's turn. He stepped up to the piano, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. Though he masked it well, there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. For all his bravado, he now realized he had underestimated his opponent. Determined to reclaim the upper hand, he launched into Liszt's La Campanella, a notoriously difficult piece designed to showcase technical prowess. From the very first note, his playing was dazzling. His fingers flew across the keyboard with astonishing speed and accuracy, producing a flurry of sound that left the audience breathless. Each trill and run was executed with machine-like precision, leaving no doubt about his mastery of the instrument. Yet for all its brilliance, Victor's performance lacked something essential. Where Maya's interpretation had been deeply personal and evocative, his felt mechanical, almost cold. It was as though he were performing for the sake of showing off rather than connecting with the music or the audience. As impressive as his technique was, it failed to stir the same emotions that Maya's rendition had. When he finished, the applause was polite but muted compared to the reaction Maya had received. Sensing the difference, Victor frowned slightly, his confidence wavering for the first time. With both performances complete, the room buzzed with quiet conversation. People debated which pianist had delivered the superior performance, though most seemed swayed by Maya's emotional depth. Meanwhile, Victor stood beside the piano, visibly unsettled. He had entered the club expecting an easy victory, a chance to assert his dominance over someone he deemed unworthy of recognition. Instead, he found himself facing a formidable opponent, one who had proven that greatness transcends physical limitations and societal expectations. For Maya, the outcome of the challenge was secondary. She had played not to win, but to share. Her gift to remind people that music has the power to unite and inspire. As she rose from the piano bench, her expression remained humble and composed. She didn't gloat or seek validation. She simply acknowledged the applause with a nod and a smile. Yet, unbeknownst to her, the impact of her performance was only beginning to ripple outward. Little did she know this single evening would mark the start of a journey that would take her far beyond the confines of the jazz club and leave an indelible mark on the world. As the final notes of Victor's performance faded into the charged atmosphere of the club, an uneasy silence settled over the room. The audience exchanged glances, unsure whether to applaud enthusiastically or simply nod in acknowledgement. While Victor's technical brilliance was undeniable, it lacked the emotional resonance that had defined Maya's earlier rendition. For many in the crowd, the contrast between the two performances was stark. Maya's music had touched their hearts, while Victor's left them impressed but strangely disconnected. Victor himself seemed to sense the shift in the room. His usual self-assured smirk faltered as he stepped away from the piano, his polished shoes clicking softly against the wooden floor. He glanced around, searching for signs of admiration or awe, but instead found a sea of contemplative faces. Some people whispered to each other, their expressions betraying a mix of wonder and confusion. Others simply stared at Maya, who stood quietly by the piano, her hands clasped gently in front of her. It was clear to everyone present, including Victor, that something extraordinary had just happened, though its full significance was still sinking in. The host of the club, a middle-aged man named Eddie with a gravelly voice and a knack for reading a room decided to break the tension. Stepping up to the microphone, he cleared his throat and addressed the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his tone warm yet authoritative, "we've witnessed something truly special tonight. Two incredible musicians sharing their talents with us, a once-in-a-lifetime experience." His words drew scattered applause, but it was the next sentence that caught everyone off guard. "And now let's hear what you think." What followed was nothing short of electric. People erupted into cheers, clapping not just for the duel itself, but specifically for Maya. Her name echoed through the room. "Maya! Maya!" As if the audience couldn't contain their admiration any longer. Strangers patted her on the back as she made her way back to her seat, offering words of encouragement and gratitude. "That was unbelievable," one woman gushed, tears shining in her eyes. "I'll never forget this night." Victor watched it all unfold with growing unease. He had expected to walk away triumphant, perhaps even condescendingly congratulating Maya on a valiant effort before moving on with his life. But this was uncharted territory. The realization dawned on him slowly. He hadn't just been bested, he had been humbled. And worse, he knew deep down that it wasn't just about skill. Maya's performance had transcended technique. It had reached into the very souls of those who listened. That kind of connection couldn't be taught or rehearsed. It came from authenticity, vulnerability, and a profound understanding of music as more than mere notes. Unable to stay silent any longer, Victor approached Maya where she sat, nursing a glass of water. She looked up as he neared, her expression calm but curious. "You played well," he said stiffly, the words tasting foreign on his tongue. Maya tilted her head slightly, sensing the weight behind his statement. "Thank you," she replied softly. "So did you." Her response disarmed him completely. There was no trace of bitterness, no hint of gloating, just genuine kindness. It was then that Victor realized how much he had misjudged her. In his arrogance, he had assumed she would crumble under pressure, that her blindness would somehow limit her ability to compete on his level. Instead, she had risen above it all with grace and dignity, leaving him, and everyone else, in awe. Over the next few days, news of the impromptu duel spread like wildfire. Videos recorded by patrons on their phones went viral online, capturing Maya's breathtaking performance and the palpable reaction of the audience. Social media platforms lit up with comments praising her talent and resilience. "This is why music exists," wrote one user beneath a clip of her playing Chopin. Another added, "She reminded me why I fell in love with classical music in the first place." Even critics who rarely paid attention to lesser-known artists weighed in, calling Maya's interpretation a masterclass in emotional storytelling. Meanwhile, Victor found himself grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, he felt embarrassed. His reputation as an untouchable virtuoso had taken a hit. On the other, he couldn't shake the memory of Maya's performance, which lingered in his mind long after the night ended. He replayed it over and over again, analyzing every note, every pause, every subtle nuance. How had she managed to convey so much emotion without relying on sight? What drove her to pour her entire being into the music? These questions haunted him, forcing him to confront parts of himself he had long ignored, determined to make sense of it all. Victor reached out to Maya a week later. To his surprise, she agreed to meet him at a quiet cafe downtown. Over coffee, they talked openly for the first time, not as rivals, but as fellow musicians. Maya shared stories about her childhood, her struggles, and her unwavering passion for music. She spoke of how her grandmother had instilled in her the belief that limitations are only as real as we allow them to be. Victor listened intently, captivated by her perspective. For the first time in years, he felt genuinely inspired, not by accolades or fame, but by the purity of someone else's artistry. Their conversation marked the beginning of a transformation for Victor. No longer content to rest on his laurels, he threw himself into exploring new ways of connecting with audiences. He attended workshops led by disabled artists, learning firsthand about the challenges they faced and the innovative solutions they employed. He also began incorporating more emotionally charged pieces into his repertoire, striving to emulate the depth Maya had brought to her playing. Slowly but surely, he started earning back the respect he had lost, not through flashy displays of skill, but through genuine humility and growth. For Maya, the aftermath of the duel opened doors she had never imagined. Offers poured in from prestigious venues eager to feature her in their programs. Record labels contacted her agent, hoping to sign her to lucrative deals. Yet despite the sudden influx of opportunities, she remained grounded. "Music isn't about fame or money," she told an interviewer during one of her first televised appearances. "It's about sharing a piece of your soul with others and creating moments that bring people together." Her words resonated deeply, earning her legions of fans who admired not just her talent but her character. One particularly memorable moment came when a young girl approached her after a concert. The child, who was also blind, shyly handed Maya a drawing she had made of her playing the piano. "You showed me that I can do anything," the girl whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. Maya knelt down to embrace her, fighting back tears. "We all have gifts," she said softly. "Sometimes we just need to believe in ourselves enough to share them." As weeks turned into months, Maya continued to perform, her star rising steadily in the musical world. Yet she never forgot the lessons she had learned along the way, the importance of perseverance, the power of vulnerability, and the beauty of human connection. And though Victor Langston had once dismissed her as unworthy of his time, he became one of her strongest advocates, using his influence to shine a light on overlooked talents like hers. In the end, the duel at the jazz club wasn't just a contest between two pianists. It was a turning point for everyone involved. For Maya, it was proof that she belonged on the stage, not despite her differences but because of them. For Victor, it was a wake-up call, reminding him that true greatness lies not in perfection but in the ability to inspire and uplift others. And for the countless people who heard her story, it was a reminder that sometimes the most powerful voices are those that rise above adversity to sing songs of hope, courage, and unity. The ripple effects of Maya's performance at the jazz club continued to spread far beyond what anyone could have anticipated. Within weeks, her name was on everyone's lips, not just in New Orleans, but across the globe. Videos of her duel with Victor Langston became viral sensations, racking up millions of views and sparking conversations about talent, resilience, and the transformative power of music. Social media platforms buzzed with hashtags like Maya Rivers Inspires and Blind but Unstoppable, as people shared stories of how her story had touched their lives. For many, she wasn't just a musician, she was a symbol of hope and perseverance. Record labels scrambled to sign her, offering deals that promised fame and fortune. Prestigious concert halls from Carnegie Hall to the Sydney Opera House extended invitations, eager to showcase her unique gift. Yet despite the whirlwind of attention, Maya remained remarkably grounded. She turned down lucrative offers that prioritized profit over purpose, choosing instead to align herself with organizations that supported accessibility in the arts. Her decision wasn't rooted in stubbornness or idealism. It came from a deep understanding that her platform could be used to create meaningful change. One of the first projects Maya embarked on was a collaboration with a nonprofit dedicated to providing musical instruments and training to children with disabilities. The organization, called Harmony for All, had been struggling to gain visibility until Maya joined forces with them. Together, they launched a nationwide campaign titled Every Voice Matters, which aimed to break down barriers preventing disabled individuals from accessing music education. Maya traveled to schools, community centers, and rehabilitation facilities, sharing her journey and encouraging young musicians to embrace their talents. "I didn't have all the resources growing up," she told a group of wide-eyed students during one such visit. "But I had passion, and that's something no one can take away from you." Her efforts quickly gained traction, inspiring others to contribute to the cause. Donations poured in, enabling Harmony for All to expand its reach and impact. Soon, the program was operating in multiple countries, reaching thousands of children who might otherwise have been excluded from the world of music. Parents wrote heartfelt letters thanking Maya for giving their kids a chance to shine. "You've shown my daughter that being different doesn't mean she's less capable," one mother wrote. "Thank you for believing in her when so many others doubted." Victor Langston, meanwhile, underwent his own transformation. Initially reluctant to admit his admiration for Maya publicly, he eventually embraced the role of ally and advocate. After their candid conversation at the cafe, he began attending events hosted by Harmony for All, using his celebrity status to draw attention to the organization's mission. At first, some skeptics questioned his motives, accusing him of trying to salvage his tarnished reputation. But Victor silenced the critics through consistent action. He mentored young pianists, particularly those from underprivileged backgrounds, teaching them not only technical skills but also the importance of playing with heart. He also made a conscious effort to shift his own performances toward more inclusive and emotionally resonant pieces. Gone were the days of flashy displays designed solely to impress critics. Instead, Victor focused on creating experiences that connected deeply with audiences. During one memorable recital, he performed a piece inspired by Maya's interpretation of Chopin, a tribute to the woman who had reignited his love for music. When he finished, the audience erupted into applause, many visibly moved by the sincerity of his expression. Backstage after the show, Maya greeted him with a warm smile. "You're finding your voice again," she said simply. Victor nodded, grateful for her unwavering support. As months passed, the bond between Maya and Victor grew stronger. Though they came from vastly different worlds, they discovered common ground in their shared commitment to making music accessible to everyone. They co-founded a foundation called Bridging Notes, which provided scholarships, mentorship programs, and adaptive technology to aspiring musicians facing physical, financial, or social obstacles. The initiative quickly gained momentum, attracting partnerships with major orchestras, conservatories, and tech companies. One of its flagship projects involved developing cutting-edge software that allowed visually impaired musicians to compose and read sheet music using auditory cues, a breakthrough innovation that revolutionized the field. Maya's influence extended beyond the realm of philanthropy. She became a sought-after speaker, delivering keynote addresses at conferences and universities around the world. Her talks often centered on themes of resilience, creativity, and the universal language of music. Audiences hung on her every word, captivated not just by her eloquence but by the authenticity of her message. "Life is full of challenges," she told a packed auditorium during one speech. "But those challenges don't define us, they refine us. They teach us to see beauty in unexpected places and to find strength in our vulnerabilities." Her words resonated deeply, especially among marginalized communities. People wrote to her, sharing how her story had inspired them to pursue their dreams despite seemingly insurmountable odds. A young man confined to a wheelchair described how Maya's determination motivated him to start composing music using specialized equipment. A single mother battling illness thanked her for reminding her of the importance of perseverance. Each letter reinforced Maya's belief that music has the power to heal, unite, and uplift. Even as her career soared to new heights, Maya stayed true to her roots. She continued performing at intimate venues like the jazz club where it all began, ensuring that her music remained accessible to everyday people. These smaller shows were often free or donation-based, with proceeds going directly to charitable causes. Fans cherished these performances, describing them as raw and unfiltered, glimpses into Maya's soul. "She doesn't play for fame or fortune," one attendee remarked. "She plays because she loves it, and that makes all the difference." By this point, Victor had fully embraced his role as Maya's partner in advocacy. Their friendship evolved into a professional partnership marked by mutual respect and admiration. Together, they hosted benefit concerts, workshops, and panel discussions, amplifying voices that had long been overlooked in the classical music world. One particularly impactful event brought together musicians of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds for a collaborative performance that celebrated diversity and inclusion. The standing ovation that followed lasted nearly 10 minutes. underscoring the profound effect their work was having on both performers and audiences alike. Through it all, Maya never lost sight of why she started playing music in the first place: to share joy, tell stories, and connect with others. Her humility remained intact, even as accolades piled up. Awards lined her shelves, yet she rarely spoke about them. What mattered most to her was the knowledge that she was making a difference, one note, one person, one community at a time. And while Victor's journey toward redemption wasn't without its challenges, he emerged from it a changed man. No longer defined by arrogance or elitism, he became known for his generosity and willingness to learn from those around him. In interviews, he openly credited Maya with helping him rediscover his passion for music and humanity. She reminded me that greatness isn't about being better than someone else, he once said. It's about lifting others up and leaving the world a little brighter than you found it. As the years rolled on, Maya and Victor's combined efforts transformed the landscape of classical music. Barriers that had once seemed impenetrable began to crumble, replaced by opportunities for underrepresented artists to thrive. Concertgoers witnessed increasingly diverse lineups featuring musicians whose stories reflected the rich tapestry of human experience. Critics hailed this shift as a much-needed evolution, praising Maya and Victor for leading the charge. Yet perhaps the most enduring legacy of their collaboration was the countless lives they touched along the way. From aspiring musicians discovering their potential to seasoned professionals redefining their purpose, the impact of Maya's artistry and Victor's transformation rippled outward, touching hearts and minds across generations. As Maya often said, music is the language of the soul, and every soul deserves to be heard. Years passed, and the legacy of Maya Rivers and Victor Langston grew into something far greater than either of them could have imagined. What had started as a single night in a small jazz club blossomed into a movement that reshaped not only the world of music but also the way society viewed talent, disability, and inclusion. Their names became synonymous with resilience, compassion, and the belief that art has the power to transcend boundaries and unite humanity. Maya's career reached heights she never dreamed possible. She performed on stages around the globe, from sold-out arenas to intimate charity events. Each performance was met with thunderous applause, not just for her technical skill, but for the emotional depth she brought to every note. Critics hailed her as one of the greatest pianists of her generation, comparing her to legends like Rachmaninoff and Horowitz. Yet Maya remained humble, always reminding herself, and others, that her success wasn't hers alone. Every time I sit at the piano, she often said during interviews, I think about all the people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. This journey belongs to them as much as it does to me. Her influence extended beyond the concert hall. Through Harmony for All and Bridging Notes, Maya touched the lives of countless individuals who might otherwise have been excluded from the world of music. Young musicians with disabilities found inspiration in her story, seeing her as proof that their challenges could become strengths rather than limitations. Parents wrote letters thanking her for giving their children hope. One particularly poignant message came from a father whose daughter, born without arms, had learned to play the piano using prosthetics designed by engineers inspired by Maya's advocacy. You've shown us that nothing is impossible, he wrote. Because of you, my little girl dreams of becoming a composer. Victor, too, left an indelible mark on the musical landscape. Once known for his arrogance and elitism, he reinvented himself as a champion of accessibility and inclusivity. His mentorship programs produced a new generation of musicians who carried forward his lessons, not just about technique, but about empathy and connection. Many of his protégés went on to achieve success in their own right, crediting Victor with teaching them how to use music as a bridge between cultures, communities, and generations. When asked about his transformation, Victor would simply smile and say, I used to think greatness was about being the best. Now I know it's about making others better. Together, Maya and Victor created a lasting partnership that redefined what it meant to be allies in the pursuit of change. They traveled the world, speaking at conferences, hosting workshops, and performing benefit concerts that raised millions for causes close to their hearts. Their friendship became a testament to the idea that even the most unlikely relationships can lead to extraordinary outcomes. While they came from different backgrounds and initially clashed over their perspectives, they ultimately discovered that their shared passion for music and their desire to make it accessible to everyone was stronger than any differences between them. One of their proudest achievements was the establishment of the Global Music Accessibility Initiative, a groundbreaking program aimed at ensuring that no one would ever again be excluded from participating in the arts due to physical, financial, or social barriers. The initiative partnered with governments, corporations, and nonprofits to fund research, develop adaptive technologies, and create scholarships for underrepresented artists. It also launched a series of educational campaigns designed to challenge stereotypes and promote diversity within the industry. Within 5 years, the program had transformed the way institutions approached inclusivity, setting a new standard for equity in the arts. As Maya entered her later years, she began to focus more on mentoring young musicians, passing down not just her skills but her philosophy of life. She encouraged her students to embrace vulnerability, to see their struggles as opportunities for growth, and to always remember why they fell in love with music in the first place. Her teachings resonated deeply, shaping a new wave of artists who prioritized authenticity over perfection. One of her most devoted pupils, a blind teenager named Jamal, eventually won an international piano competition, a victory Maya celebrated, as though it were her own. "This is what it's all about," she told reporters afterward. "Seeing someone else succeed because you helped light their path, it doesn't get better than that." Victor, meanwhile, continued to evolve as both a musician and a human being. In addition to his work with Bridging Notes, he published a memoir titled The Notes We Missed, in which he candidly reflected on his past mistakes and the lessons he had learned from Maya. The book became a bestseller, praised for its honesty and insight. Readers appreciated his willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about privilege, bias, and the importance of humility. At book signings and speaking engagements, Victor often joked that writing the memoir had been harder than mastering Liszt, but infinitely more rewarding. Despite their busy schedules, Maya and Victor made time to collaborate whenever possible. Their joint performances became legendary, drawing audiences eager to witness the unique chemistry between the two pianists. Whether interpreting classical masterpieces or improvising original compositions, they played as though they were engaged in a conversation, each note responding to the last. Critics described their duets as a dialogue of souls, while fans called them magic. For Maya and Victor, these performances were a reminder of how far they had come together. As the years rolled on, Maya eventually decided to step back from touring to spend more time with her family and dedicate herself fully to advocacy work. Her final concert, held at Carnegie Hall, was a star-studded affair attended by luminaries from across the arts. The evening featured tributes from fellow musicians, activists, and even political leaders, all of whom credited Maya with changing the way they saw the world. When she took the stage for her closing piece, a hauntingly beautiful rendition of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata, the audience sat in reverent silence, many moved to tears. As the final chord faded, the room erupted into a standing ovation that lasted nearly 15 minutes. Maya stood at the piano smiling softly, knowing she had given everything she had to give. Victor delivered a heartfelt speech during the tribute portion of the evening, his voice cracking with emotion as he spoke about the impact Maya had on his life. "She taught me that music isn't about notes or keys or even talent," he said. "It's about connection, about finding your humanity and sharing it with the world. And she taught me that no matter where you start, there's always room to grow, if you're brave enough to listen and learn." In the years following Maya's retirement, her influence continued to ripple outward. Schools named auditoriums after her, cities erected statues in her honor, and documentaries chronicled her life and legacy. Yet perhaps her greatest achievement was the cultural shift she inspired, a world where barriers were replaced by bridges, and where everyone had the opportunity to contribute their voice to the symphony of life. Even after her passing, her Spirit lived on in the countless lives she had touched and the movements she had sparked. Victor carried the torch until his final days, ensuring that the work they had started together would endure long after they were gone. He often reflected on how different his life might have been if he hadn't walked into that jazz club all those years ago. "Meeting Maya changed everything," he once said. "She showed me that greatness isn't about proving yourself. It's about lifting others up. And now, every time I hear someone play with heart, I hear her in the music." Their story ended not with sadness, but with gratitude, for the music they shared, the lives they changed, and the bond they forged against all odds. Together, Maya and Victor proved that true harmony comes not from perfection, but from embracing imperfections, celebrating differences, and finding beauty in the unexpected. Their legacy serves as a timeless reminder that when we open our hearts and minds, we can create melodies that resonate across generations, leaving the world forever changed.